There comes a moment when a man finally realizes something painful. The harder he tries to keep her, the more he pushes her away. You text first. You explain yourself. You give more. You wait for her attention, hoping that one day she will finally recognize your value. But what if that is exactly why she stopped respecting you? Here is the uncomfortable truth most men never learn. You cannot make someone value you by constantly proving your worth to them. Sometimes, the moment you stop chasing is the moment everything changes. Not because you are playing a game, not because you want to manipulate her, but because for the first time, you stop abandoning yourself just to be chosen by someone else. And that silence can reveal something powerful. Hello everyone, welcome to the Magnetic Masculinity channel. In this video, we will uncover what actually happens inside her mind when a man stops chasing, and why distance, silence, and self-respect can create a kind of masculine attraction that desperation never could. Stay until the end, because the final lesson may completely change the way you understand attraction, respect, and your own value. Now, let's get started. Part 1. The moment you stop abandoning yourself. The most dangerous thing about chasing someone is not that you might lose her. It is that, little by little, you begin to lose yourself. At first, you don't notice it. You simply care. You want to make things work, so you become more available. You reply faster. You cancel your plans when she suddenly has time. You tolerate behavior that once would have bothered you. And whenever she pulls away, instead of asking whether she deserves a place in your life, you immediately wonder, what did I do wrong? That is where the balance begins to change. Because every time you sacrifice your boundaries just to keep someone's attention, you quietly teach them something about you. You teach them that their approval matters more to you than your own self-respect. And people can feel that. Real masculine presence does not come from pretending not to care. It doesn't come from ignoring women, playing mind games, or deliberately making someone jealous. It comes from something much deeper, the ability to care about someone without abandoning yourself for them. That is why the moment you stop chasing can feel so powerful. You are no longer sitting beside your phone waiting for her message. You are no longer analyzing every word she sends. You are no longer trying to convince someone to see qualities that should never have required an argument in the first place. Instead, you return your attention to your own life, your work, your body, your purpose, your peace, and something changes inside you. You stop asking, how can I make her choose me? And you begin asking a far more important question, why am I trying so hard to be chosen by someone who is uncertain about me? That question hurts, but sometimes pain is the doorway back to dignity. Because when a man finally remembers that his life has value even without her attention, he becomes different. Not colder, not bitter, just grounded. And strangely enough, that may be the first moment she begins to look at him differently. Because now she can feel something that wasn't there before. He is no longer afraid to lose her. And in part 2, you'll understand why that single shift can completely change the emotional dynamic between two people. Before we continue, I want to ask you something simple. Have you ever stopped chasing someone and noticed that they suddenly started treating you differently? If you have, share your experience in the comments below. There is no right or wrong answer. Your story might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. Let's share our perspectives and learn from each other. And if you're enjoying this video and finding something valuable in these words, please subscribe to the channel. Your support gives us the motivation to keep creating more deep, honest, and meaningful content about self-respect, relationships, masculine strength, and the psychology behind human connection. Now let's continue. Part 2. When your absence becomes noticeable. There is something strange about human nature. We often don't realize the value of something while it is constantly available to us. Think about it. When you were always there, she may not have had a reason to wonder where you were. Your messages were predictable. Your attention was guaranteed. Your presence was almost automatic. And because it was always there, it could slowly become invisible. But when you stop chasing, the pattern breaks. Suddenly, the silence feels different. She may begin to wonder, why hasn't he texted? Is he losing interest? Did something change? And perhaps, for the first time, she begins to notice the space you used to fill. But understand this carefully. The goal is not to disappear so she becomes anxious. The goal is not to punish her with silence. And it certainly isn't to create some childish psychological game where you pretend not to care. The real power comes from something much simpler. You stop forcing your presence into someone's life. If she wants to talk, you are open. If she wants to see you, you make space. But you no longer beg for attention that should be freely given. That distinction is incredibly important, because when you constantly pursue someone, they never have the opportunity to experience what life feels like without your attention. You are always there, filling every silence before it can even exist. But when you step back, not dramatically, not angrily, but naturally, you create something that chasing could never create: space for her own thoughts. And inside that space, memories can return. She may remember your voice, your conversations, the way you made her laugh, the calmness you brought into her day, the little things she never noticed because they were always there. But there is another possibility you must be mature enough to accept. Maybe she doesn't come back. Maybe she doesn't reach out. And this is where real self-respect separates itself from manipulation. Because if you stop chasing only because you expect her to return, then you're still chasing, just in silence. True strength means accepting both outcomes. If she comes closer, you observe her actions. If she walks away, you let her walk. Because your goal was never to control her feelings. Your goal was to regain control over your own life. And once you understand that, her response becomes less important. You are no longer waiting for her to validate your worth. You already know what you bring to the table. Part 3. Respect begins when you stop begging for it. There is a painful truth many men discover too late. You cannot demand respect from someone who has learned that you will accept anything just to keep them. Respect is not created by asking for it. It is created by the standards you are willing to live by. If she repeatedly ignores you, you don't need to send 10 messages explaining how hurt you are. If she keeps canceling plans without making an effort to reschedule, you don't need to convince her that your time matters. If she only comes toward you when she needs attention, you don't have to become her permanent source of validation. You simply observe. And then you decide what you will and will not accept. That is where masculine strength begins. Not in aggression, not in control, not in trying to dominate someone, but in the quiet ability to say, I care about you, but I will not betray myself to keep you. There is something incredibly attractive about a man who has boundaries without needing to announce them. He doesn't threaten, he doesn't manipulate. He doesn't say, if you don't change, I'm leaving. He simply lives according to his values. And if someone's behavior consistently conflicts with those values, he has the courage to step away. That kind of man is difficult to manipulate because his happiness does not depend entirely on another person's approval. And this is where many men misunderstand the idea of stopping the chase. Stopping the chase does not mean becoming cold. It means becoming selective. You can still be affectionate. You can still communicate. You can still show interest. You can still love deeply. But you stop giving endlessly to someone who gives almost nothing in return. Because love without boundaries eventually becomes self-neglect. And self-neglect eventually turns into resentment. You begin wondering why she doesn't appreciate you. But perhaps the deeper question is, have you shown her that you appreciate yourself? When you respect your own time, your own energy, your own purpose, and your own emotional boundaries, people begin to understand that access to you is not automatic. It is earned through mutual respect. And if she respects you, she will move toward you with genuine effort. If she doesn't, you will finally have the clarity to stop wasting your life trying to convince her. Because the strongest position a man can reach is not, how do I make her respect me? It is, I know what I deserve, and I am willing to walk away from what doesn't. And once you reach that point, you no longer chase respect. You naturally command it through the way you live. Part 4. When you no longer need her to choose you, and now we arrive at the part most men misunderstand. The real transformation does not happen when she comes back. It happens when you realize that you no longer need her to. Because if you stop chasing only because you hope she will eventually notice your absence, then nothing has truly changed. You are still waiting, still hoping, still measuring your worth by her reaction. Real masculine strength begins when her decision no longer determines your emotional state. If she chooses you, you appreciate it. If she doesn't, you accept it. Not because you don't care, but because you finally understand that love should be a choice between two people, not a desperate attempt by one person to convince the other. Think about how different that feels. You no longer wake up wondering whether she will text. You no longer spend hours analyzing her behavior. You no longer feel the need to prove that you're better than the men around her. You simply become focused on building a life that you respect. And something beautiful happens when a man reaches that place. His energy changes, his conversations become calmer, his presence becomes more confident. He doesn't need to impress everyone in the room. He doesn't need constant reassurance. He can walk away from disrespect without creating a scene. He can love someone deeply without losing himself completely. And yes, sometimes she will notice. Sometimes she will wonder what changed. Sometimes she may come closer because she can finally feel the difference between a man who desperately needs her attention and a man who genuinely enjoys having her in his life. But whether she comes back or not is no longer the point. You have already won something far more important. You have found yourself again. Because the greatest attraction is not making someone afraid to lose you. It is becoming the kind of man who is no longer afraid of losing someone who refuses to value him. So if she leaves, let her. If she stays, let her stay because she wants to. And if she returns, don't immediately fall back into the same patterns. Watch her actions. Listen to her consistency. Look for mutual effort, because words can create hope, but actions reveal intention. In the end, stopping the chase was never about making her miss you. It was about making sure that you never abandon yourself again just to be loved. And that is where true masculine attraction begins. Conclusion. Sometimes the most powerful thing a man can do is stop running after someone who is walking away. Not because he has stopped caring, but because he has finally learned to care about himself too. When you stop chasing, you are not trying to make her miss you. You are not playing games. You are not trying to control her emotions. You are simply saying, I will love you, but I will not lose myself trying to earn your love. And that decision changes everything. Maybe she notices. Maybe she comes back. Maybe she doesn't. But either way, you become stronger. Because the greatest victory is not making someone choose you. It is becoming a man who knows he will be okay even when they don't. Never measure your worth by how much attention someone gives you. The moment you depend on another person's validation, you give them control over your peace. Instead, build a life that makes you proud even when nobody is watching. Keep your promises to yourself. Protect your time, develop your body, strengthen your mind, pursue your purpose, set boundaries. And most importantly, learn to walk away from relationships where effort, respect, and affection only flow in one direction. You don't need to become cold. You need to become whole. Because when you are whole, love becomes something you share, not something you desperately need. And if someone chooses to walk beside you, beautiful. But if they choose to walk away, you keep walking toward the life you were meant to build. If this video gave you a new perspective, subscribe to the channel and stay with us. Your support gives us the motivation to keep creating deeper, more honest content about masculine strength, self-respect, relationships, and the psychology of human behavior. Thank you for taking the time to watch until the end of the video. See you in the next videos.